Frustration is a good way to start our topic today. Because all of you, as you get into organizations and you start working for an organization, company, manufacturing, whatever it may be, are going to be change agents. That's what we do. We improve processes. We improve things, right? So frustration is going to creep up on you significantly in that role because people don't like change. Organizations don't like change. The people in organizations don't like change. Therefore, if you're the change agent, you're going to be in the crosshairs of everybody who's got frustration going on. So we're going to try to talk about some of that today. I'm going to give you some tools that we've used in the past to help do some of this. So about 15 years ago, a friend of mine, a professor at University of Alabama in Huntsville, gave me this paper when I was frustrated with change. One time said, "Go read this paper." I said, "This is a 1972 paper. Why do I want to read a 1972 paper in 2000?" And she said, "Read it. You'll understand." So this guy named Greener had an article in the Harvard Business Review talking about organizational change. And his position was there are two types of change. There's evolutionary change and there's revolutionary change. And his main thesis throughout this article was that as a company progresses in evolutionary change, getting incrementally better throughout it in its current systems, it reaches a point at which it will level off. And that organization has a decision to make at that time. At that point, evolutionary change is not going to get you any better. You've got to do something revolutionary to make it to the next level. Now think about this. If you're a company just starting out, a couple of people have an idea, want to make products, do you need a manufacturing execution system? Let's say you've got a little product, you got 2 people and 3 mills, and you know how to run it, and you can make all of them yourself. Do you really need a manufacturing execution system? Do you need a scheduling system, automated? No, you can do that on an Excel spreadsheet or on a piece of paper, right? At some point, growth is going to get you to where that's no longer valid, right? If you're successful, you're going to continue to grow, and as you grow, things are going to get more complicated because now you've got more materials you have to buy, you have less time to make each of the parts, you need more equipment, all of those things. So as you progress from a startup into a successful organization or company, you got to make some significant changes, revolutionary technological changes, to be able to move to the next level of performance. And that was Greener's whole thesis in this article was this. And he was talking specifically about organizational change. But as I started using this idea or looking at this idea, I realized this affects all types of change, all types of systems. And being a systems engineer, that's what I was looking at. How do I apply this thinking to other systems that I might be involved with? So his point was that regardless of whether you're a low growth, medium growth, or high growth company, you're going to experience evolutionary change, the incremental stuff that we do. But at some point, you have to have that transformational technological change that's going to make a difference. The difference is in a low growth, you're not going to see as many of those revolutionary change moments. In a high growth, you're going to see a lot of revolutionary change moments. Okay, so keep this in mind as we talk about the rest of what we're going to talk about today. So change. This is an actual quote from an auto supplier supervisor in the state of Alabama. "I've learned 3 things about new programs. Never oppose them, you'll get fired. Never do any work on them. In 3 months, you'll never hear about them again. I've been here 23 years, and I've seen 23 of these things come and 23 of them go." This is the person out on the floor that you're asking to implement change in a system. And that's their outlook in life. If I just wait long enough, it'll go away. Okay? So as you go to implement, what Tom talked about last time was how to go and implement lean, right? From his experience. And I'm going to give you some ideas, some other things that we've seen in that area also. But this is what you're up against in implementation of new ideas. So you have to figure out a way to get that person on your side for this. When you see, when we talk about resistance to change, it typically does fall into a normal curve. What we have here is, in the middle, we have what we call reasonable people. And what do I mean by reasonable people? Are we all reasonable here? Maybe, maybe not, right? But yeah, it's people who are willing to at least listen and give it a try, right? So if your focus is on implementing change, and most of the people here are reasonable, and I've got a significant number of, a number of pessimists, and I've got a number of optimists, where do I need to put my effort in making changes? The pessimist. Now, that's a typical answer. Why would I spend all of my effort on the pessimist? Am I ever going to win them over?
I mean, maybe with more effort than optimism.
If I could win them over, they'd be in the reasonable people stage, right? Yeah. But that's the typical answer that you get. The optimists are going to be out there in front of you. Yeah, let's go, right? Yeah, this is great. We're going to go make this change. You don't have to do anything to motivate the optimist, right? They see it. They're out there. They're excited. This is where you need to spend most of your time, because if you spend time here, you're going to empty your tank out pretty fast. But if you spend time here with these people, they're going to start seeing improvements. Hopefully the change you're trying to make is an improvement, and that will pull some of these people in. Now, you're never going to get all of these, right? You're never going to get all of the pessimists in there to join you in your quest for improved performance. But you can't ignore them either. You got to do something to apply. You include them in the training, you include them in all of the discussions, but you have to figure out a way to minimize their impact on the rest of the organization. So I'm going to show you, this is a part of a briefing we did for some change management activity that was going on at MRDEC. And the details of the change are not important. I just wanted you to see some of the things we were dealing with. So saying organizational change is like death is a little extreme, but people don't like change. The reaction to change follows this pattern where we're hopeful, then we become depressed about it, then we finally get a little motivation about it. So you go through this death spiral when you're talking about change. The way change process is handled determines on the steepness or severity of the employee reaction. The way the change process is handled can help the organization be more motivated, but if you do it wrong, we're going to mess it up. That was the main point. And when you start looking at groups, management tends to have a little bigger reaction than maybe the other staff might have. Management was the hardest group to actually get to change. These are the guys supposed to be leading the change, right? So it's not that change is a bad idea. It just goes against everything we know to be true. In other words, you broke your end of the deal. I joined your group to go do this. This is the way it was all set up, and now you're coming in and changing things on me. That's the attitude that you're going to run into. Some of the top issues in employee resistance to change: lack of trust, lack of insight, lack of credibility, lack of belief. You got a lot of people out there that say, I don't understand it, I don't know it, I don't like it. That's what they're telling you. In a psychological contract, you got a lack of employee support, and things are fine the way they are. Well, no, they're not, or else we'd be making money instead of losing money. But you have people in an organization that's actually losing money, they'll say, we really don't need to change anything, everything's fine, we just need to work harder. And that's not true. Communications, rumors are usually worse than reality, which is absolute truth. Management is keeping secrets, don't trust them. Employees don't understand why we need to change. Remember what Tom was talking about the other day. Need to make people understand why this is important for us to go do. Timelines, there's deadlines for reporting. How fast is it going to happen? In other words, what are you going to do to me? And contractors make up a portion of the workforce. They have some of the same issues. So even if you have contract labor in there, change still affects their attitude, even though they're just supposed to do what you tell them to go do, right? So that idea of well, they're just 40% of our workforce is contract. We don't need to pay attention to them. Doesn't really work. Remember, John Shook was here, and he was talking about lean and implementation of lean, right? These are his slides. Lean will work anywhere, but a lot of companies have tried. Not many companies have been successful. In fact, probably aren't. Why? Why do the change initiatives fail? What are the success factors? What are the failure modes? Came back and said, this is what we need to understand. First, they don't know what to do. They don't want to change. They don't know what it is they're going to change to. They can't. They don't know what to actually go do. Then they really can't change their habits by themselves. You have to help them. And then they don't recognize the fundamental nature of change. Okay, so this list of what is hindering our performance in implementing a significant change like lean into an organization is telling us that we need to do a better job of education, we need to do a better job of explaining why, we need to do a better job of our implementation process. So this is some information from a study we did a few years ago when I was working with the Lean Educator Academic Network at EdNet, and we were looking at why don't we have any North American Toyotas? Why don't we have that example here? We've been trying to do this for a long time. So over the past 5 decades, organizations through the world have attempted to implement lean to improve their process. The number of lean transformation efforts that have actually achieved and maintained the improved performance is not as great as the investment would suggest. Is that giving you a feeling that you're getting a good ROI on your investment? No, it's not, right? And reported success is often limited due to failure in enterprise to fully understand how lean works in practice. That means we're teaching tools instead of philosophy. After all, why isn't it the norm? After all the investment made by industry, why don't we have those? The reported isolated islands of success, but the undeniable fact is that utilization of training and tools to achieve enterprise performance has not worked. So just learning how to do single-minute exchange of die, just learning how to build a Kanban, just learning how to do TPM does not in itself help you implement lean. Okay? You have to put it into the philosophy. We've had a lot of people that have tried to reverse engineer Toyota's results by employing those tools, but reverse engineering doesn't work because all you're still getting is what are the technical aspects of what we're trying to do, not the strategy aspects of what we're trying to do. I'm not going to go through all of those. I put a lot of stuff in here for you to have in your notes so that you can refer back to them. But this is the important one. The imperative is that the organization moves from perception that I will work on a continuous improvement activity if I have time after I finish my work. That's where most organizations are with their employees when you're trying to implement lean. Yeah, I've got this other stuff to do, and then I'll go do that lean stuff. And we've got to change that to the solving of problems is my work. That's where the difference between what Toyota does and its philosophy and having the pillars and foundation that it talks about versus implementing a bunch of tools that can help us maybe improve our processes a little bit. So the way Toyota went about this was developing methods for improving these processes. And the philosophy they use is one called Kaizen. Now, everybody's heard of Kaizen, right? Do you know what Kaizen means? Without reading that up there. It means change. It means good change. It means coming in. My job every day when I come into my factory is Kaizen. I'm to make good change every day. That's what I'm supposed to go do. That's part of my belief system. That's part of what I'm expected to do. That's what my supervisors and my managers and all that expect me to do. And by the way, they're all doing that too. Okay? So Kaizen means improvement. Moreover, it means continuous improvement. So taking this back to Greener that I talked about on the first slide, where would Kaizen be in Greener's framework?
All those little squiggles.
The little squiggles? It's the evolutionary change. Kaizen is evolutionary change. It's small incremental improvements every single day. That's what Kaizen is. So Kaizen became a buzzword when I wrote a couple of books on Gemma Kaizen and Kaizen, the key to Japanese competitive success. Imei is considered the Kaizen guru. He was the guy who really ran Teiichi Ohno's approach to in implementing these changes, these improvements in the factory all the time. Now, I like this just because it has a little automation in it. This is a slide we used to use from when I was at the Alabama Technology Network, and we were talking about the tools. So we have all these tools: pull systems, cellular, TPM, standardized work, quality systems, point of use service, quick change or SMED, 5S, visual. We've got all these things that we use, value stream mapping being the entry to all of that. But Kaizen is the way we implement it. Okay? You implement those through Kaizen. Now, unfortunately, let's see if I left this slide in here. Yeah. This is another one from the. Well, when you're talking to a bunch of industry guys, you really need to dress it up a little bit and make them smile. Okay? I tell you, the first time I went to a value stream map at the McDuffie Coal Terminal in Mobile a while back, several years ago, and I go into the room and I'm this guy from University of Alabama in Huntsville and running the Alabama Technology Network Center up there, and I come in to do this value stream map on how they're moving coal and how can we improve the coal moving process, and I walk in and every one of them's like this. So I had a bunch of pessimists with me, right? They didn't believe anything was going to happen, and the youngest person in the room had been at McDuffie Coal Terminal 29 years. And they're sitting there like this saying, you're going to come in here and tell us how to go do our job? Yeah. So I knew I had a problem. So the first thing we did is we all got a cup of coffee. I sat down, instead of standing up from them, I sat down at the table in front of them, and I crossed my arms like this too. And I said, you know, guys, I don't know a single thing about moving coal. Probably haven't moved a piece of coal in my life. But I know some things about how to improve processes. So if you'll teach me how to move coal, I'll teach you how to solve problems, and maybe together we can make some improvements. And all of a sudden they started loosening up a little bit. And we ended up having a great activity, great event on there. But you have to understand who you're talking to, and that's why these slides have these types of things on them. So it lightens it up a little bit. So Kaizen is a process of identifying, eliminating waste, implementing these at the lowest possible cost. You have to have continuous, gradual, persistent improvement by all employees and all management involved with it. Kaizen, you typically have a cross-functional team that's doing it, focused scope, aggressive goal, and a lot of people call this as a Kaizen blitz. And that's the way we would implement it, right? That's the way we would train them, because we'd come in the first part of the week and we would train people on what it was. I think that's the next slide. So train people on what we were about to go do. We'd go through some exercises, get them all excited about it, then we'd go attack the problem, right? So we would do it in 5 days, and it was a Kaizen event, right? Unfortunately, most U.S. companies have implemented Kaizen as an event and not as a philosophy for the way you do your job every day. So the transition between teaching somebody tools, like we were talking about in the slides before, and understanding a philosophy of continuous improvement there's a big gap there. And that's why classes like this are really good, because you're getting both pieces, right? You're learning some of the tools and you're learning about what the philosophy is. But these are the standard steps you would go through in doing a Kaizen blitz, okay? Now we also had a thing we called drive-by Kaizens. And a drive-by Kaizen was one where you really didn't pick a real hard problem to go do it. You just go pick something and improve it and move on. Now that typically does not help the bottom line. So when you start talking to the finance people, they start saying, well, we're paying for all this Kaizen stuff and nothing's really happening to our profitability. Well, that's because you're doing all these drive-by Kaizens that actually don't affect the main problems that you have. But drive-by Kaizens are good for training. You can train people with that, but understand that you're typically not working on the critical path and you're not going to actually make an effect on the bottom line of the company. So the second type of change that Toyota talks about is Kaikaku. And Kaikaku is radical, revolutionary implementation of a value stream to quickly create more value with less waste. So Kaikaku is talking about what kind of change? The square one, revolutionary change, right? So Kaizen is evolutionary change. Kaikaku is revolutionary type of change. So if we talk about if you come in over the weekend and you move all the equipment and rearrange it completely, is that Kaizen or is that Kaikaku? You got a 50-50 chance, right? Yeah, it's Kaikaku, right? It's revolutionary change. The people came in, my machine's not where it was. That's revolutionary change to somebody in the organization, right? What if you come in and you've been doing work on 2D drawings in your shop forever, and you come in one day and put in a product data management system, and now you've got CAD, and you've got a manufacturing execution system, and you're doing everything digitally. Is that Kaikaku or is that Kaizen? Kaikaku, because you're making a huge technological change. I've increased my overall capacity by what I now can do from what I had. So that's the key. Have I changed the basic way I can do business to now I have more capacity to grow? That means that's what Kaikaku would be. Okay? Kaizen is going to be that every day come in and make changes to what I need to do my job. So sometimes it's called breakthrough Kaizen because people don't like to say Kaikaku, but it's changed in a revolutionary manner. So getting back to this, the point is that this is Kaizen, this is Kaikaku, and they have to work together. You have to be able to. They all have to be part of your overall improvement plan, your overall strategy for what you're doing. So John Shook showed us this, where the NUMMI plant was certified the absolute worst plant in the country, and it made it to this, where it's a new kind of workplace, best one in GM's fleet. Is that Kaizen or Kaikaku? Combination of them. Good. So they had to use Kaizen to make the simple improvement. They also made a significant change in the overall strategy and operational methods that they used within their organization. Right? They made organizational changes. They made system changes. They did everything. That is a radical change. That is Kaikaku. So Kaikaku can be the culmination of a lot of Kaizen activity, to the point where that Kaizen activity is going to evolutionarily bring you up to a point, and then you have to change everything. Yes?
Is it part of policy deployment then?
It is part of policy deployment. All of that stuff fits within this overall. We're going to talk about that in just a second. So there's the requirements for a successful lean journey are pretty simple. It's all common sense, focused application of common sense. When you go and make these changes, when we did a single-minute exchange of die effort on the lab down there, was that hard to understand? Who did that? Madison did that, right? So I mean, it was fairly simple. It was straightforward, right? Common sense. We don't want to have to unbolt and rebolt and all that stuff, right? We want something that just fits it, and we can put our part in and do it. Simple, right? Except somebody has to actually think about that, and somebody has to actually do it, right? So it's common sense stuff. We just need to be able to implement them. So the challenge is in implementing that, and then sustaining the transformation. So does anybody remember their world history, Cortez? Anybody remember world history? Cortez. Do you remember what Cortez did when he made it to the New World? Huh? He burned the boats. If you burn the boats, you can't go back, right? You pretty much said forward. We're going forward. So part of the challenge of this in sustaining, if you don't burn the boats, if you don't make it where you can't revert back to your former method, people will revert back to their former method. We have UAH has some. I was up at Steelcase a couple weeks ago in Athens, and UAH has a couple of senior design teams out there working on a project, and it's supposed to be on improvements, but they found out they're not even following the standards that they have because they didn't make it where you can't go back and do it the old way. So people are going back and do it the old way. So how do you improve if you don't have a standard? You can't, right? You can't make improvements if you don't have a standard. So you need to make sure that in sustaining the transformation that you have a way of improving of maintaining that. And then transformation thinking into behavior and action is a complex activity. And every single one of these is unique. You will never find an opportunity for you to make changes in your organization that is the same in every organization. It's always going to be different. So what you need to understand are the principles of change so that you can apply those principles, but the way you implement them each time is going to be different. So how would you answer these questions? I'm manager. I know I need to make changes. Where do I start? You come in and you say, yeah, we did this lean in college, and I understand it, and I think it'd be great to implement this thing. And your boss goes, okay, great. Where do we start? Okay. So we had training. We have be specific about your goals. What else? Finding out from the employees what's actually going on. Yeah, do a value stream or process maps. Absolutely, good job. So this is from the Lean Academy, and LAI was the Lean Aerospace Initiative. Later, it was termed the Lean Advancement Initiative at MIT, and we were the only center outside of MIT that was involved with this when I was with University of Alabama in Huntsville. And this is the type of training we were doing with people at that time. So the Lean Enterprise model was meant to do exactly what you're talking about there in policy deployment. Is that you had human-oriented practices. My little thing's not showing. Human-oriented practices, and we had process-oriented practices. And you had to do both of them at the same time to accomplish a transformation. But this gave you an idea of what kind of strategies and processes and procedures we needed to put in place to be able to execute a lean enterprise transformation. Now, there's like 35 more slides. So we're going to go through these really fast. Okay. So understanding that this model I'm going to show you is something that you can go and pull up and look at and find more details. And if you want more details from it, let me know and I'll send you. I'll give you some stuff. But this is the Lean Enterprise model. And the Lean Enterprise model, how would you know what to go implement? Well, then we had this transition to Lean model that we used. So this set the overall upper goals of what we're trying to do. This was how we were going to go and implement those tools. So this was the transition to Lean roadmap. And it started out with enterprise strategic planning, where you create the business case, you do the focus on customer value, you learn all about what your organization is actually doing, where you need to go. So you make a decision to pursue this transformation. Then you go into the adopting the Lean paradigm. This is where you build your vision, you convey the urgency. This is the why. Why are we going to do this? That's extremely important. And then this would lead you into what we call the long-term cycle. Now, long-term cycle is where we would find Kaikaku going on, right? So we're doing things like focusing on the value stream. The value stream is going to be the current state, what we currently have, but it's also going to show us in about 2 to 3 years, where would we like to be in this? That's what your future state should be telling you. 24 to 36 months out, where do I want my process to be? Now your vision back here should be telling us in 5 years, 10 years, where do I want to be, right? What do I want to be doing? But here on the value stream level, we're talking about what can we actually execute in the near term. And then that leads us to a detailed Lean vision, and that's going to lead us to some structured behavior. So organizing for the implementation, aligning incentives, all those things that Tom was talking about, getting your metrics in place with the goals of the organization and making sure that we're doing all that, the Hoshin Kanri planning that we talked about. All of that is where this will take place, to make sure that we're aligning ourselves, our efforts on the shop floor and in the organization are aligning with the goals of the corporation. And then that leads us into what we call the short-term cycle, where we have Lean Transformation Framework. This is where we're going to identify and prioritize our activities. We're going to commit some resources to it. We're going to do our education and training. This is where we start building our army of continuous improvement personnel. And then that leads us into implementing those through detailed plans. This is where we do Kaizen. Okay? And then Kaizen leads us into how we're going to now monitor the process, how are we going to continue to do the changes and understand if we're making progress towards our vision, towards our goals, all of that. And this short-term cycle happens fast. This is a lot of quick iterations. This is the everyday come in and make a change on how we're doing our job, Kaizen. The bigger loop, all of this information we're getting here feeds back into our value stream that we update, and our value stream now tells us what the next thing is we want to go do. And that's the longer-term cycle of it. And we're going to do a lot of Kaizen here, and we're going to run into some problems where we need to employ Kaikaku technology radical change up there. So you can see how all of this needs to work together as one unit of activity. Now, that explanation is going to be like the next 20 slides, what I just told you. So then that leads us to, well, how do I know if I'm making progress? There's several tools out there. One was called LESAT. LESAT is a tool for self-assessment of your Lean capabilities that was developed. I have another one I'm going to show you that's just a one-page kind of plant walkthrough assessment that you can use. But it's a way of going about it. And there's some actual research going on right now for some people I know that are trying to develop better tools to understand your level of Lean comprehension and Lean capability within your organization. So the Lean assessment tool gives you different levels of where you are, going from I have some awareness of the practice to exceptionally well-defined and innovative approach. I've got another paper that I did about 5 years ago that actually aligned these levels of capability with Bloom's taxonomy for learning that be happy to make available to you if you're interested in it. So these are the tools for the Lean journey. It's a constant iteration, always reviewing where we are. This is what Toyota does naturally. This is what we have to figure out how to do in our organizations that are not quite so natural. So the enterprise strategic thinking, that's where we create that business case. We have mission, vision, and values. We put together that in a 2 to 5 year strategic plan. This is actually from a steel metal building company. And I thought this was amazing. They defined down to 5 key business drivers. They had their measures for next year, what they're actually going to go try to do, and they built it all on a foundation of Lean Enterprise. So this is a company who is aligning their mission vision with the capability of developing, of implementing that through Lean, which I thought was really unique. Then you adopt the Lean paradigm, you foster that Lean learning and make that commitment. You got to have senior management not only buy-in, but leading this. So the reason why senior management needs to lead this is if we just train people, we end up with a group that has somewhat the same goals. Every once in a while you'll find somebody that's not, right? But we're working towards some of the same goals. If we get a group with vision going, everybody's focused and aligned on the same goals. It's a very efficient way of utilizing your resources for change. There's also a creative tension. This is out of Peter Senge's 5th Discipline. If you haven't read that, you need to, because it's a good book on learning how to see the overall system. And what he's talking about here is that here's your current reality, and if you put a rubber band around your hand and you stretch, this is where my vision is, what does that cause to the rubber band? Tension, right? It stretches it. So what are the ways I have to relieve that tension? Reduce the gap, yeah, but what are my 2 choices? I can bring that vision down, or I can change my current reality, right? Toyota says we're going to change the current reality through Kaizen and Kaikaku. That's in policy deployment and all of the other things that they have as part of their structure. Unfortunately, what happens in a lot of companies is we start to bring that vision down and say, well, we might have reached too far. No, you just didn't change your current reality. So understanding that this little understanding of current reality vision is extremely important when you're trying to defend a implementation. The enterprise leader needs to develop enterprise goals and metrics that encourage and promote Lean. Do they do this in a vacuum? No, need to have everybody engaged, but it's the leader's job to do it. It's not the Kaizen team's job to do that. So don't do it in a vacuum, but it is the leader's job. And you got to decide, is this going to be a program of the month or is it going to be foundational change, right? The Metals Building Company said this is foundational change in the way we do our business. Unfortunately, the program of the month is that auto supplier supervisor that I showed you as quote early on, right? I've seen 23 of these things come and go. I will outlast them. Get it, foster learning. There's practice experience here, and then there's education and training. So there's two things. One is building skills, and one is building knowledge. And you have to have knowledge and skills to overcome a lot of the resistance to change. Then you focus on the value stream by mapping those and internalizing that vision, and you have to involve the key stakeholders. It's important that the people who are engaged in that value stream have buy-in to what they're doing, like the guys at the McDuffie Coal Terminal. Then you're going to take those, you're going to break down those value streams into the life cycle processes and enabling infrastructure processes, and you're going to have to work on all of these areas, right? We said there's human components, there's process components, and the LEM that you have to bring together to make this really happen. But you can't go do all those at one time. So you have to determine what are the critical ones, how are we going to step our way through this. And then at the operational level, you want to have, these levels you want to have metrics for operations, supervisor, and senior management, and they should flow. One should build on the other. Tom talks about how when he had his charts up there, right, and everybody's information built up to his information. That's what this has to do. That shows alignment. And then you have to involve all stakeholders. So a stakeholder is any group or individual can affect or is affected by the organization's objectives, right? So stakeholders is a big group usually of people. Then you have the long-term cycle is developing that lean structured behavior. The organizing for lean means typically looking at a much flatter, more efficient organization than you have in typical American hierarchical organizations. So flexible, agile, suppliers are partners, focus on the customer. All those things are when you're looking at changing your organization to adopt to a lean philosophy, those are things you need to be doing. And then those key business drivers need to be, you need to be able to bring those into what are the actual things we're going to go measure. So if they're looking at team member satisfaction, you might do a satisfaction survey or a safety survey, looking at the safety numbers or training. If you're looking at from operational performance, what do we have in terms of waste? What is our current productivity? Our customer satisfaction? What does our on-time delivery look like? Those are things that we're going to use to actually metrics that support our key business drivers and our overall alignment of organization. So there's all kinds of barriers to this implementation. Roadblocks. We've got inconsistent direction, which is a leadership thing, lack of commitment, which is a leadership thing, skepticism, which is typically the workforce, lack of trust coming from the workforce, like the MRDEC stuff I showed you, mixed signals coming in, okay, that's the non-alignment of our goals with what I'm telling you to go do. We have just typical resistance to change, because I just don't like change in general. That politics and then not invented here syndrome, right? You're going to come tell me how Toyota does it. Well, we're Chrysler. We do it better. No, not really. So the way you overcome that is you break through those barriers with understanding of developing the philosophy, creating knowledge and understanding, and then giving people the skills to go and change their current situation. Then in the short-term cycle, we have identify and prioritize. This is where we do the PDCA activities. And this is where you would use your A3s. This is where we figure out how to do project selection. One way I wanted to show you, has anybody ever used a pick chart? Okay, so a pick chart is this is the impact from low impact to high impact. This is the effort from low effort to high effort. So I have something that's low impact and high effort, kill it. You're not going to don't go do that. That's silly. If you have something though that is high impact and low effort, then I'm going to go implement those. You're going to consider those to take a little more effort to do. This is where Kaikaku would be. This is where Kaizen will be. This is where senior design projects are. So you have roles in lean implementation: champion, leader, sponsor, team. Cheerleader should be in there somewhere. Implementing lean initiatives we talked about. This is where you'd typically put together a project charter so that your team actually has the authority to go and do what they need to go do. Short-term cycle, sustaining. Then you have to invest in the process. Do not use it to reduce headcount. That will kill any effort that you ever try to do, and you'll be labeled forever as the person who gets rid of jobs. Bad idea. So this is the ongoing. You need to continue to work through this all the time. These are all the tools we have for Lean Journey. This is an example of some companies that have done this, and Tom told you 3 years to see actual improvement. So this was 1999. We started the company. Look at all the red. 3 years later, red's starting to go away. Yellow's starting to show up. 5 years later, we've done away with all the red. So understand that this type of transformation is not really fast, but you have to be dedicated to it. So the Lean Journey starts with awareness and training. Then you implement it through Kaizen. You implement future state and culture change. Then you improve and standardize systems. And then you gradually work towards a world-class organization. So Toyota will tell you that they are probably here. Most people recognize them as world-class organizations, but they will tell you that they're right here for the most part. So understand you're not going to move from here to world-class organization. You've got to go through all these steps to get there and understand it. All right, 61 slides in 45 minutes. So your test today is give me a definition for Kaizen and give me a definition for Kaikaku. And see, by the end of the semester, I have learned I can stay within time. And for those of y'all who are interested, this is the factory floor plant walkthrough that we used. So as we would go through a company and talk to them about their areas and what we saw as we made a walkthrough and interrogated some of the people in there, we would fill out this sheet, and you would be able to go in and then make some recommendations on where to help them start. It really didn't help us a whole lot. What it did is help whoever was the manager we were working with to understand this is accomplishable, but this is where you need to go start. Then here we can help you put a plan together. And then these were some of the percentages and metrics we would use to help them understand what kind of improvement they could make after we looked at their other information.